Hey guys, it's Emiliath back with yet another Cloak and Dagger tutorial. Did I literally just upload a Cloak and Dagger tutorial? Yes. However, that was before I had 22 hours, hit their proficiency, and reached just under top 500 while one-tricking them. So I decided to do an updated guide that has every single thing I've learned, mistakes, plays, and how to deal with 20-punch auto lockman and his sidekick Shinobu. This tutorial is not going to just walk through each ability and what it does, so if you don't know what their abilities do, I suggest going to the Marvel Rivals website, which shows every stat number for each ability, and oh my god, do I wish every video game did this. I mean, seriously, why do video games hide their numbers? Anyway, this is just a more in-depth guide than what I previously put out, so let's get into it. First of all, let's talk about what Cloak and Dagger are good at. Actually, it might be easier to say what they're not good at because they're pretty much good at everything. They can counter ultimates with their abilities, output damage to finish people off, they have survivability against insane dive comps, even killing those dive characters, and can output some insane healing numbers, giving your teammates more time to stand AFK on the point, not shooting the spider nest that's killing them. So what are they bad at? Well, it's not so much that they're bad at anything, it's that your teammates don't know anything. Your teammates have no idea that when you use Cloak's Fade ability, they're invuln so long as they're inside of it and don't shoot or reload while stealthed. Yes, shooting and reloading on Cloak's allies that were inside that ability. They also have no idea that your ult does 220 heals per second and even more if it's stacked. Oh yeah, you can stack your ultimate on top of itself, meaning your team can survive most things if they just stand in it. On the flip side though, the enemy team also has no idea how much damage your ult does. I think most people believe it's a damage dealer, but shh, they don't know I know this hack. It only does 30 DPS per strip. So how do I play around the general player base's ignorance? Well, you play Luna Snow. Just kidding, kind of. You have two options. Option number one is to use voice chat. By the way, when I do my cloak thingy tank, don't shoot in it. It takes you out of the cloak. Stand by me. Boom. Stand by me and don't shoot whenever I cloak.
Black man at the third half.
Stand in my ult, you won't die to Hella. Stand in my ult. But let's be honest, they're probably not going to listen to you, and it's extremely hard to teach your teammates while you're playing. Option number two is to use your abilities around yours and the enemy team's ignorance until people eventually understand what they do as the game ages. That means for Cloak's stealth ability, you're going to need A, awareness, and B, impeccable timing if you want to use it for your allies. In order to use this ability to save your teammates from ultimates, you have to attempt nearly frame perfect timing versus set ult in order to avoid your teammates accidentally shooting or reloading while in it. But this method is extremely hard in a game where ultimates are usually spammed and there's a lot of audio and visual clutter. So alternatively, the method I try to go for is to use myself as bait. Basically, I separate myself a little bit from my team and put my character out in the open. I try to make myself look as juicy as possible to that Magneto or Jeff or Scarlet Witch, and when they go to throw their ult at me, I just cloak myself and get out. Obviously, this isn't always going to work, but it is pretty hard to pass up solo ulting a support that is looking desperate, helpless, and confused in the middle of a fight.
Call an ambulance! Call an ambulance! But not for me!
This also allows you a little more leeway with the timing on the cloak because you don't have to attempt a frame perfect save and can use the stealth a bit earlier. You still have to time it properly to avoid dying or to keep them baited, but it is much easier than trying to save on your allies. Now, when it comes to the ultimate, it's a little more difficult because while you can stack it and give your team the option to survive nearly everything, they're very rarely going to use it. First of all, it's stationary, which makes it hard for your team to position where they need to continue aggressing on the enemy team. Second, it's not super intuitive. It doesn't look like it heals, which is why no one stands in it. However, enemies think it does damage, which it does, it's just a lower amount, and generally try to stay away from it as well. So I found that using this ultimate as a zoning ability tends to work out much better for me because my teammates will stand in it either intentionally or accidentally, and they're still getting a decent amount of heals from it, and the enemy team will try to stay out of it, giving your allies the room they need to position and take space. I find it's a really good ult for contesting point, or even just moving the enemy team off point basically, by covering the whole area with it or by creating a triangle shape around the payload. reload. However, there are definitely some times that you can stack the ult on top of itself to save your allies no matter how bad they want to walk out of it. The best cases for this off the top of my head are lining it up on a tank trying to walk forward in a tight corridor that's taking too much damage to heal, or for Groot ult. Fun fact, even if you're grabbed by Groot, you can use this ultimate to get out of it, but your teammates are still grabbed, meaning you can stack your ult on top of the area of Groot's ult to save them, and they're literally forced into the position on top of your ult. Other ultimates that can be countered with a stacked Cloak and Dagger ult include Hela. I know it's hard to trust, but she straight up cannot kill you while you were standing on top of your stacked ult. Black Panther, Doctor Strange, Spider-Man, Star-Lord, I believe Punisher, and Venom are the popular ones that I know of. So there are definitely times where you can stack your ult to live against these things, but these are going to be kind of case by case. There are a lot of factors like how spread out your team can get in the immediate area of the ult, how quickly the ult can reach your team, and if it's even worth attempting to save the fight or cut your losses and use your ult for the next fight instead. Now your next question might be, okay, I'm confused. So how should I use the ult? Well, there's not one specific way or one use all button. It unfortunately requires the scariest word of all, thinking. You need a thought process behind your ultimates with Cloak and Dagger, unfortunately. They aren't like Luna Snow or Mantis where you press Q and you win the game. The biggest part of using any ult in general is tracking cooldowns and ultimates. As Cloak and Dagger, since you can use their ult to counter others, you should be paying attention to the ultimates on the enemy team, what you want to use it for, and try to hold it for that moment. If I know there's a Groot, I'm fully holding my ult until he uses his to save my team. Ultimate and cooldown tracking isn't just for your ult, it's also for your abilities. If there's a Strange, I'm watching for his ultimate to use my stealth on so I can freely ult to save my team if I need to. If there's no ultimate you want to use your ult for, you can use it to save yourself if you're in a desperate situation, especially since your team will be at a significant disadvantage being down a strategist. Or, like I said before, you can also use it to find an aggressive play that will push the enemy team back, or use it to cover the point to contest to give your team an edge while fighting there. You almost always have to have an idea of what you're using it for though, because just saying, hey team, I'm using my ultimate, press your W key, will rarely work. Regardless of how I'm using my ultimate, it typically gives me a little more freedom to be aggressive on the enemy team because I can stand inside of it and self-heal while I do some damage. Especially versus Hela ult, it actually gives your team time to shoot the Hela down. This pushes the enemy team to either reposition or makes them waste abilities to try and kill me while I still have the advantage on cooldowns. So like, actually use your ultimate to your advantage even if your team doesn't. Okay, now that we know how to play around our silly Billy teammates, let's talk about healing our silly Billy teammates. The biggest thing you should probably know about Dagger's healing is that she can heal around corners and in rooms she can't see. Her primary fire is a lock-on target for allies, including when they run out of sight. So if they're close enough, you can shoot at a wall nearby them and the healing will auto-lock onto the ally and try to heal them. This comes in super clutch and is important to know so that instead of staring at the wall your teammate is behind, you can just spam primary fire in their general direction and pray it hits. I've helped so many tanks, Helas, and Hawkeyes win their 1v1s by doing this. You can also shoot at the enemy if you can see them, but not your ally. If your ally is close enough, it will still heal them. Dagger has an AoE on her healing and damage so that when an ally or yourself is standing within the area, it will heal them too. This provides a nice group healing if your team is in a sticky situation. Second, her Veil of Light can also come in clutch for low health allies, meaning you should be paying close attention to its cooldown and your ally's damage intake. It does 45 healing if it hits, but more importantly, it boosts healing received by 15% for 4 seconds. This will save so many people from the brink of death if you can time it right. On top of that, if you need an extra boost, you can pop your bubble on top of set allies for 55 heals per second. This is a ton of burst healing that can quickly turn a fight around. However, as most of you know, your allies will not use your abilities, so I really only pop my healing bubble on allies when I'm super desperate, like if I'm reloading after Veil of Light and can't heal them quick enough. Most of the time, I try to save Dagger Storm, the healing bubble, for myself to fend off attacks or to help protect my other support. It's important to save this ability for your backline when you can because it makes it extremely hard for any flanker to kill you or an ally that's in it before you can react to save them. This also requires a lot of awareness and constant lookout for flankers. Which brings me to my next point, survivability. If you're not alive, your teammates probably aren't either. You have got to focus on yourself first, which means positioning yourself optimally and using your abilities to set yourself up for success. Cloak and Dagger are probably the best support for dealing with any dive character. When a Spider-Man jumps you, you can simply throw a bubble on yourself, swap to Cloak, hit him with the Terror Cape, and then burst him till he dies or runs away to reset his cooldowns and get healing. You can rinse repeat this process because by the time he comes back, you usually have your cooldowns back. Again, you just have to save them for the flanker until that flanker is dead. This works for tanks as well. You can do the exact same process until they're scared off because it's less likely you'll kill them. I try to hold out my abilities till I damage them down a bit, then I'll throw down my bubble, Terror Cape, and try to burst them. It also baits them into inting into you if you pretend you don't have your cooldowns ready. Oh? You thought you were playing a shooter? Oh no, you're playing every single mind game known to man, just like your ex. And even if they don't die, they're usually scared off, and if they don't get scared off, you can use your Fade on Cloak to reposition as a last resort. You can then swap back to Dagger if they're still diving you and left click on them, because if they're close enough to you, it'll heal yourself hopefully until your cooldown resets on Bubble. I rarely ever struggle with any character that's diving me and can almost always kill any that aren't tanks fairly easily. Even if you can't finish them with Cloak, you can swap to Dagger and use her lock on primary fire to keep shooting them as they try to run away, possibly finishing them off. Also a quick tip, you can use scroll wheel to swap between Cloak and Dagger for a faster reaction time. And finally, we are to my last point. That is until I upload this, realize I forgot something, and have to make another video about the same character in the future, who I will still probably be one-tricking because I feel a sense of comfort when I find a new character I like and am somewhat good at, and suddenly the dread and crushing weight of not being good enough at anything lifts for a small moment until I lose 40 games in a row and the cloud of self-deprecation takes over, so I stop playing and angrily watch Netflix's Love is Blind. But it can't distract me from my raging desire to be good at the game, and eventually I hop back on to try and prove to myself I'm not worthless and repeat the losing process over and over again until a new character is released and I can start completely over and get the serotonin boost from a fresh new addiction character, and then we will have a new guide for a different character. So when to damage and when to heal. Personally, I think the best method is to DPS when you can. There is a lot of heal botting in Marvel Rivals, however, with Cloak and Dagger, you have a lot more freedom due to the AoE on Dagger's healing plus her Veil of Light. So if you see an ally taking a close fight with another person, you can simply shoot the enemy instead of your ally, and your ally will still be getting healed. Obviously, you should shoot your ally directly if they're taking too much damage, but you can certainly give them an edge by creating more pressure on the enemy team to back off. There's also moments where you have to make a quick decision for your backline on if you're going to kill the enemy flanking or try to heal your allies through it. And honestly, it's a hard decision to make. Typically, I try to throw a bubble in the area for my allies, and if they don't use it, that's just like their problem. While that's out, I go for killing the flanker instead of healing. However, if you have a few teammates grouped up with the flanker, you can shoot at the flanker with Dagger while still healing your allies, and hopefully your allies can finish them off. Obviously, each situation is pretty unique, but keep in mind, heal-botting teammates that can't aim aren't going to do anything for you. And that's all I've got for now. Overall, Cloak and Dagger are one of the strongest and have some of the most utility in the strategist category, but are nerfed by their teammates just not knowing what they do. These are a list of things I'd love to see changed on their kit. 1, their ult desperately needs a visual change to indicate it will heal my allies, and it needs to be more visible in general on the ground for them. 2, faster animation for Veil of Light, as in I want to be able to shoot faster after using it because it keeps you locked in an animation for a while. I think this is a small change that could help bring them up without just raw buffing their damage or movement. 3, on Cloak Stealth, allies should get a small grace period at the beginning of the ability to give them time to react to being stealthed. So if they're already shooting or reloading when Cloak uses it, they aren't instantly taken out of the ability. There's no indication when the ability is about to be used on them, so it's really hard to use it for anyone but yourself when you're playing Cloak and Dagger. And 4, selfishly, I'd love to see a super small buff to Dagger's damage. I don't really think she needs it per se, but after playing Luna Snow holding left click and accidentally killing someone by shooting them in the head, I realized Cloak and Dagger have a hard time comparing, especially considering you have to be close to an enemy to use Cloak's damage. Okay, I'm actually done yapping now, or am I? Find out next time on my third existential Cloak and Dagger guide. If you liked the video, please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. I'll see you guys later. Bye!
Tandy needs help.
By the eye of Agamotto!
Don't let them do this, Tandy.
Assemble! I am Yamamoto! God of Thunder! God of Thunder!
It's fighter time! Get ready. Here come the bad guys.
Jury! Executioner! Judge! Jury! Executioner!
Feel the wrath of the goddess!
Get ready. Here come the bad guys. Help. So cold.
Hell unleashed!
Help. So cold.
Tremble before Bast!
Get ready. Here come the
Child!
The moon haunts you!
Don't mess with the amazing Spider-Man! Now I gotcha. Armed and dangerous! 气贯长虹！
Tandy needs help.